There are moments in life when everything aligns, not in the external world, but within the soul. A chance encounter, a familiar gaze, a silence that speaks louder than words, and suddenly the heart knows what the mind cannot explain. This is not coincidence. This is not mere chemistry. This is the call of something ancient and inevitable. When destiny calls, and it calls through love, no force in the universe can truly stand in its way. The unconscious draw between two individuals is a force that often transcends reason, planning, and even personal desire. It emerges from a realm deeper than thought, a realm where ancient, universal patterns of human experience reside. This is the collective unconscious, a psychological reservoir filled with archetypes, symbols, and motifs that have guided humanity for centuries. When two souls are drawn to each other with a feeling of inevitability or mysterious familiarity, it is rarely just personal attraction or chemistry at play. It is a manifestation of this deeper psychological structure that underlies and shapes our emotions. At the heart of the unconscious draw lies the recognition of something essential, not only in the other person, but in oneself. We are not always conscious of what we seek in love. Often, we are moved by an image that has lived within us long before we ever met the person. That image may have taken root through dreams, stories, myths, or the figures that influenced us in early life. Yet its origin is deeper than any single experience. It is part of an archetypal pattern, a universal template that informs our sense of the beloved. When we encounter someone who fits that internal image, we experience a magnetic pull that feels both exhilarating and inexplicable. This is not simply the pull of fantasy or projection. It is the psyche's way of directing us toward wholeness. The unconscious does not only conceal hidden desires, it also contains the blueprint for personal growth and psychological integration. When we are drawn to another person with deep intensity, it is often because something in them awakens an aspect of ourselves that has been buried, neglected, or unformed. In them we may see our courage, our sensitivity, our playfulness, or even our darkness. This recognition stirs us because it is symbolic. It is not about the person alone. It is about what they represent within us. Love, then, becomes a mirror, and when it is guided by the unconscious, it is a mirror polished by myth, instinct, and spiritual memory. We may find ourselves drawn to someone who challenges our ego, who disrupts our plans, or who makes no logical sense in the context of our lives. Yet the pull remains, persistent, haunting, and difficult to ignore. This is the power of the unconscious draw. It bypasses the rational mind and goes straight to the soul. It doesn't ask for permission. It simply arrives, often disguised as coincidence or chance. This is why such love often feels destined. It arrives not as a product of calculated choice, but as something fated, pre-written in the script of our being. And while not all unconscious attractions lead to healthy or lasting relationships, when the pull is mutual and rooted in shared symbolic resonance, it becomes a powerful force for transformation. The lovers become co-travelers on a journey not only toward each other, but toward themselves. They awaken in one another the forgotten languages of the heart, languages spoken long ago, in dreams, in silence, in symbols passed down through time. This is not about romantic idealism. It is about psychological truth. We do not fall in love at random. We are drawn, unconsciously, to those who carry pieces of our inner world, pieces we have yet to understand, or reclaim, or embrace. And so, true love that is guided by destiny begins with this mysterious and powerful draw, one that does not start in the mind, but in the timeless depths of the soul. Synchronicity, as a concept, speaks to the mysterious alignment of inner experiences with outer events, occurrences that are connected not by direct cause and effect, but by meaning. In the context of true love and destiny, synchronicity plays a powerful role in guiding individuals toward one another through a series of seemingly unrelated events that, when viewed in retrospect, form a coherent and undeniable pattern. These are the moments when someone appears in your life just as you're ready for them, or when paths cross under strange, poetic, or serendipitous circumstances that defy mere logic. While on the surface, these experiences may look like chance or coincidence, they resonate deeply within, as though the universe itself is responding to an unspoken longing. This phenomenon occurs when the inner world of thought, feeling, or longing aligns with events in the external world in a way that carries personal significance. When two people are destined to meet, their meeting often occurs through a chain of such synchronicities, moments that whisper rather than shout, moments that feel orchestrated by something greater than personal will. It might be a dream that predicts a face, a book that falls open to a page describing exactly what you're going through, a song that plays at just the right time, or a sudden encounter that feels both unexpected and completely right. These are not just coincidences. They are signals, signs that something meaningful is taking shape in the fabric of your life. The appearance of synchronicity suggests that the psyche is not isolated from the world, but intimately linked with it. It indicates that the heart's inner truths, even those not consciously acknowledged, are somehow mirrored by the outside world. This connection creates a sense that destiny is not a fixed path, but a living dialogue between you and the world around you. When love is meant to be, the universe speaks in these symbols and timings, guiding the individuals not through force, but through invitation. The signs do not demand, but they evoke attention. They nudge the soul awake, asking it to follow the thread of meaning rather than logic. Such experiences are deeply personal and often hard to explain to others. They are felt rather than proven, and this very quality is what makes them sacred. Two people might feel as though they have been drawn together by invisible hands through a series of unrelated events that only make sense when looked at as part of a larger whole. These moments often defy the rational narrative we are used to telling ourselves. They belong to the symbolic order, a place where time bends, boundaries blur, and the unseen moves just beneath the surface of things. True love, when guided by synchronicity, often feels like returning to a place you've never been before but have always known. The familiar ache of recognition arises not because you've met in this life, but because your souls have danced around each other long before the meeting. The synchronicities build a bridge between those inner memories and the present moment, affirming that what is happening is not random, but necessary. It is this sense of meaningful inevitability that gives destiny its voice and true love its echo. The presence of synchronicity affirms that love is not simply about choice or effort, but about listening to the language of the universe, a language made of symbols, timings, and the subtle, beautiful magic of things falling into place. Individuation is the process through which a person becomes whole, integrating the many fragmented aspects of the self into a unified, conscious being. In the context of true love and destiny, individuation plays a profound role, because love, especially the kind that is destined, does not merely connect two people, it awakens them to who they truly are. Often we imagine love as something external, something that happens between us and another person. But the deepest, most transformative love begins as an internal journey. It is through the call of love that many are led into the path of self-discovery, shadow confrontation, and ultimately individuation. When destiny calls through love, it is not offering comfort, it is offering growth. The person to whom we feel unexplainably drawn is often the very one who unconsciously represents aspects of ourselves we have not yet accepted, developed, or even discovered. This individual acts as a mirror, sometimes gentle, sometimes confronting, reflecting back the unlived potential within us. This could be courage we've long suppressed, vulnerability we've feared, or dreams we've abandoned. True love demands that we face these inner truths, not to impress or possess the other, but to become more authentic ourselves. The journey toward this authenticity often begins with a sense of longing or incompleteness. It is this subtle inner voice, this yearning for something more, that stirs the soul to seek. And often, that seeking leads not to external achievement, but to a person who activates the hidden parts of our psyche. They may come into our lives suddenly, under unusual circumstances, or after long periods of solitude or self-work. Their presence stirs something ancient within us, something that feels both terrifying and irresistible. This is not infatuation. This is the awakening of the self through the recognition of the other. In the psychological process of individuation, one must confront not only the conscious ideals, but also the unconscious shadow, the repressed fears, desires, and wounds that have shaped one's emotional world. A destined love often accelerates this confrontation. The relationship becomes a crucible for transformation. There is passion, but also challenge. There is joy, but also exposure. You cannot hide from someone who sees your soul. And when two individuals are brought together by destiny, they do not complete each other. Rather, they compel each other to become whole. This dynamic often explains why destined love is rarely smooth or easy. It stirs the depths, and in doing so, it brings to the surface everything that has been buried: traumas, insecurities, illusions. Yet within this very struggle lies the path to inner integration. You begin to understand that the relationship is not just a romantic experience, but a spiritual initiation. The other person is not simply a partner, they are a catalyst. Their love is the fire that melts away false identities. Their presence is the silence in which your truest self begins to speak. When love and individuation are intertwined, the relationship becomes sacred. It is no longer about possession or perfection. It becomes about becoming. You are not trying to hold on to the other, but to hold space for the becoming of each soul involved. And so, destined love is not a final destination, but a portal. It leads you inward as much as it leads you forward. It reminds you that love is not the end of the journey. It is the call to begin. Within the depths of the human psyche exists a dual structure that is rarely conscious but profoundly influential: the anima and the animus. These are inner, unconscious images of the opposite gender that live within every individual. The anima represents the inner feminine in a man, and the animus represents the inner masculine in a woman. These inner figures are not constructed solely from personal experiences or external relationships. They are archetypal in nature, inherited patterns that form part of the collective unconscious. When a person encounters someone in the external world who resonates with this inner image, the result is often an intense attraction, a sense of deep familiarity, or even the experience of what is commonly referred to as love at first sight. But this reaction is more than romantic sentimentality. It is a psychological event where the unconscious is stirred and something ancient within the soul awakens. The anima and animus are not static images. They develop over time, evolving through personal growth, relationships, and spiritual introspection. When underdeveloped or unexamined, these archetypes can cause projection, the unconscious tendency to attribute one's inner qualities onto another person. This is why people sometimes fall in love with an idealized version of someone rather than the person themselves. But when these archetypes are more integrated, more conscious, they act not as distortions, but as bridges. They allow genuine connection, not only with another person, but with one's own inner world. When a relationship emerges from this deeper place, it is marked not by fleeting passion, but by a sense of destiny, meaning, and transformation. When two individuals are drawn together under the influence of these inner archetypes, the attraction often feels fated. It is not merely physical or emotional, but symbolic. Each sees in the other something that resonates with a profound inner truth. The woman may see in the man the qualities her animus has long carried: strength, clarity, vision. The man may see in the woman the essence of his anima: grace, intuition, emotional depth. These projections, when conscious and worked through, lead to deep psychological union. The relationship becomes a vessel not only for love, but for the integration of these internal opposites. This process is not without challenges. When we fall in love with the image of our anima or animus in another person, we may expect them to fulfill roles or embody qualities that are not truly theirs. This is why some relationships begin with ecstasy and collapse under the weight of unmet expectations. But in a destined connection, the presence of the anima and animus does not lead to illusion. It leads to awakening. The other person challenges us to meet ourselves more honestly. Through love, we begin to see the projections we've carried, and in doing so, we start reclaiming those aspects for ourselves. True love that arises from this anima-animus resonance is not about two halves becoming whole through each other, but about each person accessing and integrating the lost half within themselves. The relationship becomes an alchemical process, a sacred exchange in which both people are refined, deepened, and made more complete. It is not an escape from the self, but a return to it, guided by the mystery of recognition and the quiet certainty that something meaningful has stirred below the surface. This is why such love feels beyond the ordinary. It is the dance of the soul with its own reflection, seen in the eyes of another. In the hidden architecture of the psyche, every person carries within them a unique blueprint, a psychological destiny shaped not by external circumstances alone, but by the silent call of the self. This self is not the ego nor the persona we wear in daily life. It is the deeper core of the individual, the totality of the conscious and unconscious, the unchanging center that seeks wholeness, meaning, and realization of inner truth. When love enters through the door of this inner calling, it does not come as mere desire or choice. It comes as an unfolding of something that was always meant to be. The self orchestrates encounters, nudges the individual through dreams, symbols, and intuition, and arranges the internal readiness that prepares one for a destined relationship. Love, in this form, is not simply something that happens. It is something summoned. There is a distinct moment in many lives when the heart begins to crave not just affection, but alignment. This longing is not for surface-level connection, but for a bond that feels resonant, soul-deep, and transformative. At such moments, the self begins to stir. It is as if an ancient part of the psyche awakens and begins calling home all the lost fragments of being. And sometimes, one of those fragments walks into our lives in the form of another human being. The sense of recognition can be overwhelming, irrational, and difficult to explain. It is not based on shared hobbies or life goals, but on the feeling that this person has stepped out of the deep waters of your own soul. That recognition is not fantasy. It is the voice of the self echoing in the chambers of the heart. This orchestration does not follow logic, and it does not obey the timing of the ego. Often, it leads two people together under unusual or inconvenient circumstances. One may be unavailable, emotionally or situationally. The other may be resistant, frightened, or unprepared. Yet the pull remains. This is because the self does not prioritize comfort, it prioritizes growth. It seeks to awaken the dormant truths that only love can reach. Through the presence of the other, we are called into greater awareness of our essence, our purpose, and the parts of us we have long denied. The person becomes not just a partner, but a guide, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not, leading us deeper into our own mystery. The self, in its wisdom, does not reveal everything at once. It speaks through dreams, symbols, and subtle intuitions. Sometimes the destined connection is foreshadowed in childhood imaginings, reappears in dreams long before the physical meeting, or arrives wrapped in pain to strip away the false in order to make space for the real. It may not feel like romance at first, it may feel like disruption, but within the chaos is the blueprint, the silent architecture that has always been waiting to be activated. And when the connection finally unfolds, it feels like entering a story that has been written across lifetimes, waiting for the right moment to be read aloud. This is why destined love is often accompanied by a sense of inevitability. Even when resisted, even when delayed, there is an undercurrent that continues to pull. The outer world may throw obstacles, but the inner world, led by the self, continues to align, prepare, and guide. The lovers may separate, wander, or grow apart, yet the call remains like a quiet song that never stops playing. It is not a force that compels, but a force that invites, steadily, patiently, with the full weight of inner truth behind it. And when the time is right, that invitation becomes a doorway into the kind of love that transforms not just the heart, but the entire being. When destiny draws two souls together through true love, the experience is not always gentle or easy. In fact, such unions often arrive wrapped in complexity, resistance, and inner conflict. This is because destined love does not emerge to offer mere comfort. It comes to awaken the soul, and awakening, by its very nature, is a disruption. The heart that encounters such love is not always prepared to receive it. There may be old wounds, fears of vulnerability, unhealed trauma, or deeply ingrained beliefs about what love is supposed to look like. As a result, resistance arises, both conscious and unconscious, forming inner barriers that complicate the unfolding of a connection that, on a soul level, has already been chosen. This resistance is not a sign that the love is wrong. Quite the opposite. It often indicates the depth of its truth. The ego resists what it cannot control, and destiny, especially in the realm of love, is not something that can be managed or predicted. It doesn't fit into plans or logic. It defies timelines and expectations. The person may arrive too early or too late, or under circumstances that seem impossible. They may challenge everything the ego thought it wanted, and yet something deeper within knows. This is important. This is different. This is real. And because it is real, it activates all the unconscious defenses built to protect the heart from being seen too clearly or feeling too deeply. The experience of inner conflict is a sacred signal in such moments. It is not something to be solved immediately, but something to be explored with care. It reveals the layers of the psyche that are being asked to transform. The part of the self that wants safety may clash with the part that longs for transcendence. The part that fears intimacy may rise up against the call to be vulnerable. And all of these voices begin to speak at once, creating confusion, doubt, and sometimes the temptation to run. But within that chaos lies the very path toward integration. The resistance is not the enemy. It is the threshold. When two souls are meant for one another, their meeting triggers not only love, but growth. And growth rarely happens in silence. It happens through friction, through reckoning, through the unraveling of old narratives. The relationship becomes an arena in which both individuals confront their shadow, the hidden, repressed parts of themselves they've refused to see. In this space, they are not simply lovers. They are mirrors, reflecting back everything that must be healed in order for true union to occur. This process can be painful, but it is also profoundly beautiful. It is what allows love to evolve from fleeting emotion into sacred transformation. What is extraordinary about destined love is that even in the face of resistance, even when both parties struggle to fully surrender, the connection remains. It doesn't vanish with time or distance. It lingers, like a song half remembered, or a dream that follows you into waking life. The bond may go quiet, may pause for years, but the pull never entirely fades, because something deeper has been activated, something the rational mind cannot undo. And often it is through this tension, this quiet war between the self that clings and the self that is called, that the true strength of love reveals itself. It is not about perfection or ease. It is about presence, the willingness to stay in the fire long enough to be changed by it. And when that change takes place, when the resistance gives way to surrender, something extraordinary happens. The love that once felt overwhelming becomes grounding. The fear that once threatened to destroy it becomes a doorway into deeper intimacy. And the destiny that once felt too vast to grasp becomes the very ground upon which two souls stand, not as escapees of fate, but as conscious participants in it. True love, when summoned by destiny, is not a fairy tale. It is a journey of awakening. It arrives not merely to comfort, but to transform, not to fulfill fantasies, but to return us to the truth of who we are. It stirs the unconscious, brings the shadow to light, and calls forth the deepest parts of the self into being. Such love may challenge us, it may even break us open, but it always brings us closer to wholeness. And though it may defy logic, timing, or circumstance, it obeys something far greater, the quiet rhythm of the soul's unfolding. In the end, when destiny calls, nothing, not fear, not time, not even resistance, can stop true love from finding its way home.